What if your last name was more than just a family name? What if it carried the legacy of kings, Spanish nobles, fearless conquistadors, or even ancient Aztec rulers, whose bloodlines survived one of history's greatest empires? Millions of people around the world proudly identify as Mexican. But very few know that some Mexican surnames have been linked to noble families, wealthy landowners, military commanders, and even royal courts stretching back hundreds of years. Some of these names belonged to Spanish aristocrats. Others were inherited from indigenous rulers whose kingdoms existed long before Europeans arrived. And a few became symbols of power during the colonial era. When owning a certain surname could open doors that remained closed to everyone else, today, we're counting down 15 Mexican surnames with remarkable royal or noble histories. Some may still be common today. Others are surprisingly rare, but every one of them tells an incredible story. Let's begin. Before we start, Mexico's history is unlike almost anywhere else in the world. Long before Spain arrived in the early 16th century, powerful civilizations ruled the land. The Aztecs controlled vast territories from their magnificent capital, Tenochtitlan. The Maya had built sophisticated cities centuries earlier. The Mixtec, Zapotec, Purépecha, and many other cultures each developed their own kingdoms, traditions, and ruling families. When Spain conquered Mexico in 1521, these worlds collided. Spanish nobles married into indigenous elite families, royal bloodlines mixed, European titles blended with native heritage. Over generations, many surnames became symbols of wealth, influence, military service, and political power. Of course, having one of these surnames today doesn't automatically mean someone descends directly from royalty. Families branch into thousands of descendants over centuries. Still, these names preserve fascinating connections to Mexico's extraordinary past. Let's begin our countdown. Number 15, Mendoza. Our first surname is Mendoza. Today it's found throughout Mexico, Latin America, Spain, and even the United States. At first glance, it may seem like an ordinary last name. But centuries ago, Mendoza represented one of Spain's most influential noble houses. The House of Mendoza became famous during the Middle Ages. Its members served kings. They commanded armies. They governed territories. Several became bishops, cardinals, military leaders, and advisors to the Spanish crown. By the time Spain began exploring the Americas, the Mendoza family already ranked among the country's elite. One of the most famous members was Antonio de Mendoza. In 1535, he became the very first viceroy of New Spain. That made him the highest-ranking official in Spanish North America. Imagine governing an empire stretching across modern-day Mexico, Central America, parts of the United States, and beyond. His responsibilities included collecting taxes, overseeing trade, organizing settlements, defending the colony, and representing the king himself. Antonio de Mendoza encouraged education, promoted agriculture, improved roads, and helped establish some of New Spain's earliest institutions. While colonial rule remains controversial and often deeply painful for indigenous peoples, his administration undeniably shaped the future of Mexico. As generations passed, thousands adopted or inherited the Mendoza surname. Today, countless families proudly carry the name without realizing it once belonged to one of Spain's greatest noble dynasties. If your surname is Mendoza, your family name shares a remarkable connection to centuries of Spanish aristocratic history. Number 14, Cortés. Few names inspire stronger reactions than Cortés. The surname immediately recalls Hernán Cortés, the conquistador, who led the expedition that brought down the Aztec Empire. Whether viewed as a brilliant military strategist or a deeply controversial historical figure, his influence on Mexico cannot be denied. Born into a minor noble family in Spain, Cortés wasn't a king, but he belonged to the Spanish gentry, a class that enjoyed education, property, and political opportunity. After arriving in the Americas, his victories dramatically increased his status. King Charles V eventually granted him noble titles and enormous estates. He became the Marquis of the Valley of Oaxaca. The title included thousands of square miles of land and numerous towns. Few individuals in colonial Mexico possessed such wealth and influence. The Cortés family maintained privileged status for generations. Their estates produced crops, livestock, and valuable resources that strengthened their economic power. Over time, the surname spread through marriages and descendants. Today, thousands of families bear the name Cortés. Most are not directly descended from Hernán Cortés, yet the surname itself remains forever connected to one of history's most dramatic chapters. It represents ambition, conquest, controversy, and the birth of colonial Mexico. Number 13, Moctezuma. Some surnames don't come from Europe, son. Instead, they descend from the rulers who governed Mexico before Spain ever arrived. One of the most famous is Moctezuma. The name belongs to the Aztec imperial family. Moctezuma the Sukin ruled the Aztec Empire when Spanish forces reached Tenochtitlan in 1519. He governed millions of people across central Mexico. His capital amazed European visitors with its canals, temples, marketplaces, and engineering. After the conquest, many members of the royal Aztec family survived. Rather than eliminating every noble household, Spanish authorities often recognized indigenous nobles who accepted colonial rule. Several descendants of Moctezuma received legal privileges. Some even married into Spanish aristocratic families. Remarkably, descendants of Moctezuma eventually gained noble recognition in Spain. Generations later, branches of the family held titles recognized by the Spanish crown. That extraordinary blend of indigenous royalty and European nobility makes Moctezuma one of the most historically significant surnames in Mexico. Today, the surname serves as a living reminder that royal bloodlines existed in the Americas long before European monarchies arrived. Number 12, Alvarado. Our next surname is Alvarado. Today, you'll find it throughout Mexico, Central America, and the southwestern United States. But centuries ago, it was closely associated with one of Spain's most famous conquistador families. The surname comes from northern Spain and is believed to have originated in the region of La Rioja. One of its most well-known bearers was Pedro de Alvarado, a military commander who fought alongside Hernán Cortés during the conquest of the Aztec Empire. After the conquest of Tenochtitlan, Pedro de Alvarado led expeditions into present-day Guatemala and parts of Central America. His military campaigns dramatically expanded Spanish control, although they also brought immense suffering to many indigenous communities. Because of his military successes, the Spanish crown rewarded him with titles, land, and political authority. During the colonial period, the Alvarado name became associated with wealth, military prestige, and government service. Many descendants entered influential positions as landowners, judges, military officers, and local governors. Even today, the surname Alvarado carries echoes of one of the earliest elite families in Spanish America. Number 11, Guzmán. Next is the powerful surname Guzmán. Unlike some noble families that rose through military conquest, the House of Guzmán had already become one of Spain's most respected aristocratic dynasties centuries before Columbus ever crossed the Atlantic. Members of the Guzmán family advised kings, commanded armies, and held high-ranking political offices throughout medieval Spain. Several became dukes, counts, bishops, and royal counselors. When Spain expanded into the Americas, members of the Guzmán family saw new opportunities for wealth and influence. Some served as governors, others became wealthy merchants or colonial administrators. One controversial figure was Nuño de Guzmán, who governed parts of western Mexico during the early colonial era. Although his administration remains highly controversial because of his harsh treatment of indigenous populations, his influence helped establish Spanish authority across large regions of New Spain. Over the following centuries, the Guzmán surname spread through marriages and descendants. Today, it's one of Mexico's most recognized family names. While most modern Guzmans aren't members of the original noble house, the surname itself remains linked to centuries of aristocratic history. Number 10, Villaseñor. Now we arrive at a surname that many people outside Mexico may not immediately recognize, Villaseñor. This distinguished surname traces its origins to medieval Spain and later became deeply connected to some of colonial Mexico's wealthiest landowning families. Members of the Villaseñor family were among the early settlers who received large land grants from the Spanish crown. These estates often included fertile farmland, livestock ranches, and entire villages. As New Spain grew economically, families like the Villaseñor dynasty accumulated enormous fortunes through agriculture, mining, and regional trade. Many served as mayors, judges, military officers, and influential members of local governments. The family's wealth allowed future generations to marry into other noble Spanish families, strengthening their social position even further. Because of these connections, historians often describe the Villaseñor surname as one of colonial Mexico's traditional elite family names. Even today, many people associate the surname with old colonial heritage. Number 9. Carrillo, our next surname, has an equally impressive noble background. Carrillo. The House of Carrillo ranked among Spain's respected aristocratic families during the Middle Ages. Its members served as military commanders during the Reconquista, the centuries-long conflict that gradually pushed Muslim kingdoms from the Iberian Peninsula. As Spain unified under Catholic monarchs, Carrillo nobles continued serving the crown in politics, diplomacy, and military leadership. When Spanish expansion reached the Americas, members of the Carrillo family established themselves in New Spain. Some became wealthy ranch owners, others entered colonial government. Their influence extended across several regions of Mexico, where land ownership often translated directly into political power. Large haciendas, controlled by elite families, generated enormous agricultural wealth. Owning vast estates meant controlling local economies, labor systems, and regional politics. Families carrying names like Carrillo often became part of this colonial upper class. Although, as centuries have passed, the surname still carries an air of historical prestige, rooted in Spain's noble traditions. Number 8, Enríquez. At number 8 is one of the most unmistakably royal surnames on our list, Enríquez. Unlike many surnames that simply belong to noble families, Enríquez has direct historical ties to Spanish royalty. The name literally means son or descendant of Enrique, the Spanish form of Henry, during medieval Spain. Members of the Enríquez family became closely connected to the royal house of Castile. Several served as admirals of Castile, one of the kingdom's highest military positions. Others married directly into royal bloodlines. These connections placed the family among Spain's most influential aristocratic houses. When Spain established colonies in the Americas, branches of noble families, including those connected to the Enríquez lineage, brought their prestige across the Atlantic. Some settled in Mexico, others served as military officers or colonial administrators. Because noble families often married one another, the Enríquez surname became intertwined with many other distinguished Spanish lineages throughout New Spain. Even today, historians recognize Enríquez as one of the surnames with some of the strongest documented connections to medieval Spanish nobility. Number 7, Monroy. Our next surname is Monroy. Although it isn't as common as names like Hernandez or Garcia, Monroy has one of the oldest noble histories in Spain. The Monroy family traces its roots to the medieval Kingdom of Castile, where members of the family earned recognition through military service during the Reconquista. Their loyalty to the crown brought them titles, castles, and vast estates. By the 15th and 16th centuries, branches of the Monroy family had become part of Spain's landed nobility. When the Spanish Empire expanded into the Americas, several members of the family traveled to New Spain. Some became military officers. Others served as colonial administrators or wealthy landowners. As Spanish settlements expanded across central and northern Mexico, families like the Monroys received grants of land that allowed them to build prosperous ranches and agricultural estates. Over time, the surname became associated with education, influence, and economic success. Many Monroy descendants later entered politics, the military, and the Catholic Church, three institutions that held enormous power during colonial times. Today, the surname still reflects centuries of noble heritage stretching back to medieval Spain. Number 6, Escandón coming in at number 6 is a surname deeply connected to the expansion of northern Mexico. Escandón. The name is forever linked with José de Escandón, one of the most influential colonial administrators of the 18th century. Born in Spain, Escandón arrived in New Spain as a young man and quickly built a reputation as both a soldier and an administrator. His greatest achievement came when the Spanish crown appointed him to colonize a vast region, nascent region known as Nuevo Santander. Today, that territory includes much of the Mexican state of Tamaulipas and parts of southern Texas. Escandón founded more than 20 towns, encouraged agriculture, established trade routes, and organized settlements that permanently changed the region. For these accomplishments, King Ferdinand VI granted him the noble title, Count of Sierra Gorda. That officially placed the Escandón family among Spain's titled nobility. His descendants inherited wealth, influence, and social prestige that lasted for generations. Even today, historians consider José de Escandón one of the most important colonial figures in northern Mexico. If your surname is Escandón, it shares a direct connection with one of New Spain's officially recognized noble families. Number 5, Iturbide. Now we reach one of Mexico's most extraordinary surnames, Iturbide. Unlike many names on this list, Iturbide isn't simply connected to noble families. It is connected to an emperor. The surname became famous through Agustín de Iturbide. Originally a royalist military officer during Mexico's War of Independence, Iturbide eventually joined the movement for independence and helped negotiate the end of Spanish rule. In 1822, following Mexico's independence, Congress proclaimed him Emperor Agustín I of Mexico. For a brief period, Mexico became an empire, and Iturbide ruled as its first constitutional emperor. Although his reign lasted less than a year before political conflict forced him to abdicate, his place in Mexican history remains unforgettable. His family continued to receive recognition in Europe, where several descendants maintained noble titles. Even today, historians debate his legacy. Some remember him as a patriot who secured independence. Others criticize his decision to establish a monarchy. Regardless of opinion, the Iturbide surname remains permanently connected to one of the most unique chapters in Mexican history. Very few surnames can claim a direct association with an emperor. Number 4, Velasco. Our fourth surname is Velasco. This name belongs to one of Spain's oldest and most influential noble houses. For centuries, members of the House of Velasco served as royal advisors, military commanders, and high-ranking officials in the Kingdom of Castile. Several held the prestigious title of Constable of Castile, one of the most powerful positions in medieval Spain. The family's wealth came from enormous estates, political influence, and close relationships with the monarchy. When Spain established colonies on across the Atlantic, branches of the Velasco family entered colonial administration and commerce. Some settled in New Spain, where they acquired land, invested in agriculture, and participated in regional government. The surname became associated with education, prestige, and economic success. Many elite families sought marriage alliances with the Velasco lineage because of its long-standing noble reputation. Even centuries later, genealogists continue tracing Velasco family records through Spain, Mexico, and Latin America. Its history reflects the enduring influence of one of Europe's great aristocratic houses. Number 3, Palafox. Our third surname is Palafox. Although it isn't among Mexico's most common last names today, its historical importance is extraordinary. The House of Palafox belonged to Spain's old nobility, with roots stretching back to the Kingdom of Aragon during the Middle Ages. Members of the family earned respect through military service, political leadership, and close ties to the Spanish monarchy. As Spain expanded across the Atlantic, branches of the Palafox family became involved in governing the growing colonies. Perhaps the most famous member connected to Mexico was Juan de Palafox y Mendoza, appointed as the Bishop of Puebla in the 17th century. He became one of the most influential religious and political leaders in New Spain. His authority extended far beyond the church. For a short period, he even served as the interim viceroy of New Spain, making him the highest-ranking official in the colony. Palafox promoted education, expanded libraries, encouraged the arts, and supported the construction of churches and public buildings. He also challenged corruption among colonial officials, earning both loyal supporters and powerful enemies. Centuries later, historians still study his reforms and contributions. The Palafox surname remains a symbol of leadership, education, and noble service. Number 2, De León. Coming in at number 2 is De León. The name literally means of Leon, referring to the historic kingdom of Leon in northern Spain. During medieval Europe, Leon was one of the most powerful Christian kingdoms on the Iberian Peninsula. Many noble families proudly identified themselves with the kingdom, adopting the surname de Leon. These families participated in the Reconquista and later became trusted supporters of Spanish monarchs. When Spain established colonies in the Americas, members of the de Leon lineage crossed the Atlantic in search of opportunity. Several became soldiers, explorers, governors, and wealthy landowners. One of the most recognized historical figures was Alonso de Leon, a Spanish explorer and governor, who led expeditions through northern Mexico and present-day Texas during the late 17th century. His journeys helped map unknown territories and establish new settlements for the Spanish crown. Throughout the colonial period, the de Leon surname became associated with leadership, exploration, and influence. Many descendants married into other respected families, further strengthening their social position. Even today, the name carries an unmistakable sense of historical prestige. Number 1, Moctezuma de Tultengo. And finally, our number 1 royal Mexican surname is Moctezuma de Tultengo. Unlike many names on this list, this surname represents one of the clearest documented links between indigenous royalty and European nobility. After the fall of the Aztec Empire in 1521, several descendants of Emperor Moctezuma II survived. Rather than disappearing from history, many members of the imperial family adapted to the new colonial system. The Spanish crown officially recognized certain descendants as members of the indigenous nobility. Over the following centuries, they received legal privileges, inherited estates, and married into prominent Spanish aristocratic families. One branch eventually became known as Moctezuma de Tultengo. The family gained formal noble recognition in Spain and held hereditary titles acknowledged by the Spanish monarchy. This unique history makes the surname unlike almost any other in the Americas. It symbolizes two worlds coming together. On one side stood the rulers of the mighty Aztec Empire. On the other stood the royal institutions of Spain. Few families in history can trace connections to both civilizations. Today, the surname remains a remarkable reminder that Mexico's heritage is a blend of indigenous greatness and European influence. Final thoughts. As we've seen, a surname can tell an incredible story. Some names remind us of medieval castles in Spain. Others recall the temples of Tenochtitlan. Some belong to governors, generals, bishops, or emperors. Others became famous through exploration, diplomacy, or public service. However, it's important to remember one thing. Having one of these surnames does not automatically mean someone is a direct descendant of royalty or nobility. Over hundreds of years, families grow into thousands or even millions of descendants. Many people share these surnames simply because they have been passed down through generations. Still, these names preserve fascinating chapters of history and offer a glimpse into the diverse roots that shaped modern Mexico. Whether your family name comes from Spanish nobles, indigenous leaders, or hard-working ancestors who built new lives over centuries, every surname carries a story worth discovering. Call to action: did your family surname make today's list? Or do you know another Mexican surname with a fascinating history? Leave it in the comments below. We'd love to hear your story. If you enjoyed this journey into Mexico's royal and noble past, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss our next exploration into family names, ancestry, and hidden history. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.